Hello, I'm Martha Neville. Time now for Sunday House Call.
And I'm Eric Sean. Welcome, as always. Joining us, Dr. David Samadi, Chairman and Professor of Urology at Lenox Hill Hospital. He's also Chief of Robotic Surgery there.
And Dr. Marc Siegel, Professor of Medicine at NYU's Langone Medical Center. Also, author of The Inner Pulse, Unlocking the Secret Code of Sickness and Health. Good to see you both, docs.
Great to see you.
More health than sickness.
That's very good. Health. It's all about health. Okay.
Talking about health, this month is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Did you know that colon cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States? But if it's detected early and screened for properly, you know, it's also one of the most treatable. You know, Dr. Samadi, this really hits home for me because my father died of colon cancer. And sadly, he never had a colonoscopy. He was 84 years old, so it really shows the importance of going out, having that colonoscopy like once every 3 years or once every 5 years. I do it once every 3 years because it's in the family.
Yes, and I know that you're a huge advocate of screening, and no better month than March, which is the Colon Cancer Awareness Month. And I know this is really a sensitive topic for you, but you learned from that mistake, and we want people to also follow the same exact thing. 143,000 adults die from colorectal, are being diagnosed, and 50,000 die from this disease. So still, we have a lot of people that actually die from this. You're right that screening actually can save lives starting at the age of 50 unless you have a very strong family history of this familial polyposis. You may want to talk to your doctor and do it earlier. What are some of the risk factors? So we know that age obviously plays a role. Maybe he was a little too old. Obesity, smoking, excess alcohol, fatty food and red meat plays a role. And more importantly, if you have inflammatory bowel disease, we've spoken about Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. These are all risk factors, and we want you to see your doctor and make sure to get your colonoscopy. But look, I think a lot of people are afraid of colonoscopy. Did you know that 25% of people over age of 50, they don't want to go to get colonoscopy? Why? Maybe it's an invasive. That prep, I got so many people on my tour, they're saying, like, I don't want to go for that colonoscopy prep. I don't know why they're afraid of that. They don't like it.
But Dr. Marc, I was just going to say, does it hurt? I mean, that's the main thing. It keeps people away from getting it.
Let me just finish this thought.
It's not the right reason, but...
Yeah, no problem. So what I'm trying to say is that there are other options besides colonoscopy. So Cologuard, which is a study that just came out in this scientific New England Journal of Medicine, they looked at about 10,000 people, and what they found was that Cologuard, which is non-invasive, another alternative to colonoscopy, is 92% predictive. They send you a kit at home. You send back the stool. They look at the DNA cells that are being shed from the colon, and they can diagnose colon cancer. That's great for a lot of people who don't want to go through that.
I don't know. I'd want 100%. You know, I'd want them to go take that tube and stick it in whatever they do there and look at it.
What do they do?
I want to start with something that Eric admitted today, which is amazing that he's saying this on television about his father, because Eric doesn't want to bring personal facts a lot. But this is what I want people out there to know. If you have a family history of colon cancer, let's start with you. You have to get the colonoscopy earlier, much earlier, 10 years earlier than your relative was diagnosed. That's what we usually say. That's number one I'm looking for as an internist screening you. 95% sensitive is a colonoscopy for picking up colon cancer, but it's got to be in the right hands. We always say prostate cancer's got to go to the right hands, David. Colonoscopy's got to be in the right hands. It's an art. I want you to be doing it from the age of 50, but if you have a change in bowel habits, if you're suddenly constipated, you suddenly get diarrhea, you suddenly see blood in your stool, you suddenly have weight loss, you better get in to see your internist and get that colonoscopy scheduled. Again, family history, if you have polyps, it's got to be more frequent. Now, if you are afraid of colonoscopies, I want to answer Eric's question. It's the prep that bother most people. They worry about the colonoscopy, Eric, but it's the prep where you have to drink stuff the night before and you're on the toilet for a couple of hours and you know.
So the actual procedure isn't painful?
The actual procedure these days, most people are doing it on. Most people are putting them out. They're using propofol most of the time. Now, I personally like conscious sedation. That's an alternative. That's Valium and Demerol or Versed and Demerol, where you can see it being done. You have an option. You can talk to your gastroenterologist or your anesthesiologist, but you can be put to sleep. Now, I want to make one more point about something David brought up, which is Cologuard. That is just coming out. Now, in between those colonoscopies, whether you're doing it every 5 years or every 10 years, or in Eric's case, because of the family history, every 3 years, if we find polyps, it's every 3 years. In between, we do something called fecal blood. We look for blood in your stool, and there's a couple of ways we can test it.
That's that little tab thing the doctor gives you that you like leave on the shelf and never actually do.
Well, you should do it because you can bring it into your next doctor's visit. You can mail it into the lab. We can do it with immunochemical testing. That's better than the usual way. But I believe, like David is saying, I think this Cologuard may be a home run. Cologuard is just coming out. It's been FDA approved, Eric, to answer your question. It looks like it's 92% sensitive. Colonoscopy, 95%. It looks at your DNA to see if you have the mutation.
It has a lot of advantages over colonoscopy. And I'm not saying that you should not. Colonoscopy is still standard of care. But for a lot of people that are older, they don't want to go through any invasive procedure. Even though the risk of perforation may be 1%, you're still getting anesthesia. You still have to go to some surgical procedure. This is a great start. And if you find something abnormal, then you can get the colonoscopy and they can treat it. Now, for a lot of people who may have diarrhea or they have hemorrhoids, they may see some blood, that's not the time to do this test. The test itself is available. It's about $600. Medicare, and interestingly enough, I found that Blue Cross Blue Shield also accepts this and they would pay for it. So people who don't want to go for a colonoscopy for whatever reason what we spoke about, this is a great alternative test.
As a female, should I get it done? Is
Yes.
it important for me as well?
Yes, absolutely. Especially if there's genetic family, if you see any blood. One of the things that came up is the caliber of the stool, because if you have some sort of a mass in the colon, it's going to squeeze. The diameter of stool is going to be very narrow. If you see any blood tinged, that's coming from the bowel. Usually hemorrhoids is a lighter blood. It's fresh blood. And blood mixed in the stool is very concerning.
The prep isn't that bad. I mean, they have some orange drink now that wasn't bad at all.
Well, it saves lives.
Eric, once you get used
I believe you.
we've gotten away from using something called phosphosoda because of complications, but that's actually the easiest prep. They're using now either Go Lightly or New Lightly, which you have to drink more of it, than you would with the phosphosoda. But I will say this: I do want to take a slightly different point of view on David. I don't think we're ready to say Cologuard. I love Cologuard. I love the promise of this. We almost have no other situation where we literally can look at your colon directly with a scope and tell you, hey, there's a polyp here. You can't find a polyp with Cologuard. So let's get those colonoscopies done. And in the meantime, eat more fruit and vegetables, exercise more. Obesity is a huge risk. Smoking is a huge risk. Being sedentary is a huge risk for colon cancer. Fruit and vegetables alone cuts down the risk of
Perfect way to end this segment, Dr. Marc. We have to
I'm just going to put some information
on
Twitter about Cologuard. I think it's important not to replace it.
In the future.
Yes, it's
just starting.
People need to know about this.
Yeah.